I still remember Mom telling me, Dr. Dykes, my daughter made honor roll every year. How could she possibly have ADHD? And that question right there is why we need to have this conversation today. Because ADHD in girls often looks nothing like what most people expect. Many girls struggle silently for years, even sometimes into adulthood, before anyone even realizes what's going on. So let's talk a little bit about why that does happen. For decades, most ADHD research is focused primarily on boys. So the mental picture that most people develop looks something like this: constant movement, interrupting others, difficulty staying in their seat, classroom behavior problems, impulsivity. And yes, some girls absolutely show those characteristics, but many do not. Instead, their symptoms tend to be quieter, less disruptive, and because of that, they go unnoticed. And here's the reality: when a child isn't creating problems in the classroom, concerns tend to fall through the cracks, and that is where many girls start to get left behind. You know, many girls with ADHD display what we call inattentive symptoms. Parents, you may notice things like frequent daydreaming, forgetfulness, trouble following directions, losing materials, difficulty starting work, poor time management, and disorganization. Teachers will often describe these students as quiet and sweet and cooperative, or maybe just a little scattered. Because these behaviors don't disrupt instruction, they rarely raise flags. I want you to think about a fourth grade girl sitting at her desk. Her eyes are on her teacher. She's looking completely engaged, but her mind is 100 miles away. She missed the last 3 directions given by the teacher, and no one in that class knows it. Another reason that girls are often missed is because many of them learn to compensate. They work harder, they stay up later, they spend extra time organizing, they copy what their peers are doing, they develop workarounds to hide the fact that they're struggling. I've worked with girls who were staying up until midnight finishing work that took their classmates maybe an hour. Their parents thought they were just being thorough. They were actually exhausted and working twice as hard just to keep up. Masking is a coping strategy, but it's expensive, and at some point the bill comes due, and often that's in middle school when demands outpace what any amount of effort can compensate for. You know, from the outside things look fine, but on the inside, she's running on empty. Many girls with ADHD experience significant emotional challenges alongside their attention difficulties. We're talking about things like anxiety and perfectionism, low self-esteem, emotional sensitivity, and difficulty managing frustration. And here's what often happens. A parent brings their daughter in for anxiety or mood concerns, gets a treatment plan, and everyone feels like they found the answer. But sometimes the anxiety is the smoke, and ADHD is the fire. Research shows that girls are often diagnosed later because emotional symptoms become the focus, while the underlying executive functioning difficulties continue to go unaddressed. This doesn't mean that anxiety isn't real, because it absolutely is, but sometimes ADHD is part of the bigger picture, and missing it means we're only treating the problem. Let me ask you something. If I told you a student made straight A's, would you say she couldn't possibly have ADHD? I hear that assumption all the time, and it is one of the most common reasons girls go unidentified for years. Here's the thing. ADHD is not an intelligence problem. It is an executive functioning problem. A student can be genuinely bright, performing well on tests, and understand the material deeply, and still struggle significantly with things such as organization and planning and getting started on tasks, managing time, sustaining their attention. Grades tell us what a student knows. They don't always tell us what it cost her to get there. So parents, let me tell you some things that you can watch out for. If you're wondering whether your daughter has ADHD or not, here are some things worth paying attention to. Now, none of these on their own is a red flag. But if several of these are sounding familiar, that's worth a conversation with a professional. Does she do things like lose things frequently, forget assignments or tasks? Is she always having to be told over and over again? Does she need constant reminders to stay on track? Does she struggle with organization despite really trying? Does she become overwhelmed easily even by things that seem manageable? Does she spend an excessive amount of time on homework? Does she have a hard time getting started on a task even when she really does want to? Does she seem emotionally drained after school, like she's been working twice as hard as everyone else? Does she understand the material but struggle to demonstrate it consistently? Now, if several of these sound familiar, it may be worth talking to your child's pediatrician, a school psychologist, or another qualified professional. Girls with ADHD are often missed because their symptoms don't fit the stereotype. They're not always hyperactive, they're not always disruptive, and they're not always struggling academically. But that does not mean they're not struggling. The earlier ADHD is identified, the sooner a student can get the right support that they need. They can develop strategies that actually work for their brain and start building the confidence that she really deserves. If this video made you think of a girl you know, a daughter, a student, a niece, please share it, because the earlier we catch this, the better it is. If this was helpful to you, please like and subscribe so you don't miss what's coming next. You know, sometimes students who appear to be coping the best are the ones who are working the hardest just to keep up.